Bang, we are back. New name. Going to be having a new look soon, but we're gonna get episode 1 to you before we get the new logo and stuff rolling because we don't want to wait. UFC 271 is right around the corner. How are you doing, Frank?
Yeah, I'm excellent. Always looking forward to Israel Adesanya fight week. And who could be a better opponent for him right now apart from Robert Whittaker? Yeah, should be a good one.
How do you see the rematch going? Is it going to be a lot like last time, or
No, I mean it's definitely not. Well, I hope it's not a lot like last time because I feel like we didn't get to see the full, um, showcase of abilities that Robert Whittaker has. He's such a better fighter than what he showed in that first fight, and he's shown that in his last 3 bouts against Darren Till, Kelvin Gastelum, and Jared Cannonier. If he utilizes his full set of skills, and he's spoken about not letting his ego get involved this time, and measuring his pace and fighting the better fight. On the other hand, though, Adesanya has also said he didn't fight to his best potential in that bout, even though he knocked him out twice, once in each round. It's an interesting one. Honestly, I think I'd probably still back Izzy to win, but not in the same fashion. Maybe even a decision. Just edging it out. I think he can probably get Whittaker's timing down. Though I definitely see Whittaker stealing at least 1, maybe 2 rounds.
that's exactly my prediction as well, Frank. I think that Izzy gets it done. I think he gets it done by decision, and I think we see maybe the fight of the night right here, and I think it's going to be a close one. I know that the other fight we have, I don't see it going to decision. Tuivasa versus the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. I think that fight is going to end violently, and I think we see the Tuivasa hype train get derailed again here.
Yeah, I don't know, because they're both knockout artists, aren't they? And they always say one punch is all it takes. There are a couple of interesting sort of facets to the fight. Obviously, I think probably the Black Beast has the harder punch, but those leg kicks that Tuivasa has, especially considering Lewis has repeatedly stated that he has bad knees. He's had surgery on them multiple times, I think. Stuff like that could really hinder Lewis's approach, especially now because we're in the full size cage again as well. One of the big things that I believe led to his win over Chris Dorcas, Chris, in the most recent fight, where he started pressuring him, sure, but he pressures so slow, he walks so slow that he was only able to properly corral him against the cage because the cage is so small. I feel like in a bigger cage, it's going to be a lot less. He's going to be a lot less able to push that sort of game plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think we will see the knockout. I think we'll see it very early, and it is a 3-round fight, which I think makes Derek Lewis a lot more comfortable. He hates the 5-round fights. He hates trying to pace himself. I don't think he'll be looking to pace himself. I think he'll look to get this one done early, and I think he will. But I'm gonna just say this before it happens. The loser of this fight does not stink. Like, this is the top of the heavyweight division. Anything can happen at heavyweights. I think Tai Tuivasa is probably going to come back after this, and he can still beat some top guys in that division. I think we're seeing the cream of the crop, which is Ngannou, Stipe, Gane, Lewis, and Tuivasa. I think you can start to put his name right in there with those guys at the top of the division.
I do think Gane, Stipe, and Miocic all are just slightly above the rest of the pack for the time being. And, you could probably add John Jones into that as well if he ever does switch over. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to count Tuivasa out of this. It's not. I'm not on the hype train or anything. It's just
I never count out a heavyweight. Anything
yeah,
heavyweight.
exactly. Yeah, especially with these two guys as well. They've both got so much power. But then again, I guess Tuivasa did get cracked by Greg Hardy, and if you get someone who hits harder than Hardy, someone like Lewis, and we know he does, maybe that would just put him out.
So if you have to pick, who are you going with? Are you going with the Black Beast? You're going with Tuivasa.
I'll go Tuivasa. Just I don't even know how he do it. Yeah, just mess his legs up with the kicks because he has got great leg kicks. That's one thing you can say for a heavyweight at least. And yeah, maybe just take away his movement, TKO in the second round by Tuivasa.
And I'd be shocked to see if either of these guys try to use wrestling. I don't think we'll see that. I could see the only
Yeah.
really thing we can see is the leg kicks. I think that could be a factor here. I don't even think this fight will last long enough for that to be a factor. But then we're moving on to a
Well,
fight that
wait,
I don't
before we
think
do, who does the winner of that fight face is an interesting question, I think.
if it's Tuivasa, I mean, he really could any of those guys make sense, except
Mm,
I think he needs another win before it's a title shot.
mhm.
So anybody really makes sense for Tuivasa, but if it's Derek Lewis, I mean, where is he now? I feel like Derek Lewis is now the gatekeeper of the heavyweight division.
Like the elite gatekeeper. I feel like there's almost 2 gatekeepers to the division. There's Andrei Arlovski just at the end of the top 15, and then there's
Yep,
Derek Lewis at the very, well, he's the gatekeeper to the title, essentially. Um,
exactly. I don't
Derek
know.
Lewis versus Miocic could be interesting.
That's a fun
Or
fight.
or Derek Lewis versus Tom Aspinall when he knocks out Volkov at UFC London.
Well, that's another. I actually do agree with you there. I do think that happens. That's a tough fight for him to take this early on in his career. I
Aspinall.
almost would rather give him like a Chris Dawkins.
Yeah, but Dawkins is coming off a loss. If Aspinall beats Volkov, he's like well within the top 5 at that point. It's gonna be no, you know what? It would probably end up being Curtis Blades, which is horrendous.
Well,
I
that's
hate
why I
that fight.
think that you give Tuivasa to if he wins is Curtis Razor Blades.
Mm. Well, I mean, I would love to see Tuivasa versus Aspinall though. That would be a really fun one. Just the two sort of young heavyweights, both. Uh, I guess Tuivasa isn't particularly movement based, but like they're a bit more explosive and oh, that would just be a fun one.
The UFC's loved putting young stars against each other
Yeah,
lately. I wonder if that's on purpose, maybe to build up these trilogies and second fights that we get to
yeah.
see down the road. But I think the UFC would probably almost want to see Tuivasa win this fight just because there's so many more options you can do with him now. We know how far Derek Lewis can go. We
Mm.
know exactly where Derek Lewis is. He's not going to be fighting Ngannou again. I wouldn't even put him in there against Gon again. Maybe Stipe. That's a fun fight. I don't like his odds against Stipe. I mean, we did see Stipe get knocked out though, so we don't know what
Mm.
he's going to look like when he comes back. There's some fun fights to be had though in the heavyweight division still. It's not as deep as I'd love to see it, but when you're bringing in guys like Aspinall, I think he adds a whole new level of flavor to that heavyweight division.
Yeah, they're definitely banking on him getting the win over at UFC London, like heavily. Even though he's opened as an underdog, which did surprise me.
Yeah, and then we go to another fight here. I don't think this one's going to be quite as exciting. We have Cannonier versus Blonde Brunson, not to be confused with regular old Derek Brunson. He's been on a hell of a run right now, and he hasn't been doing it in an exciting fashion. But I mean, we even saw a little bit of that in the main event between Strickland and Hermansson. Strickland fought a different fight because he knew if he fought that way, he would win
Yeah.
and he'd move on. And I think we've seen Brunson do that. He's not trying to be an exciting fighter for the fans right now. He's just trying to win and get his paycheck. And he's doing just that. And I think we continue to see him do that. I think he uses his wrestling. I think he's able to out wrestle Cannonier, keep him down, and win a decision.
Oh, see, I'm the other way this time. I'm backing Cannoneer on this one. Once again, I reckon the leg kicks can be a big, big factor. You know, probably, yeah, at middleweight, he might be the most lethal leg kicker just because there's so much power behind every single shot. He's strong as well, though, which I think is going to like do him well defending against Brunson's takedowns. I wouldn't be surprised if Brunson does get him down, but I think he's going to be able to get back up and just push a relentless pace on the feet. Maybe start to take away Brunson's mobility, take away the ability to jump in on those single legs. Um, and you know, Brunson's chin has been a little bit suspect in the past, so maybe capitalize on that.
I was about to say, I don't think that he could really win a decision versus Brunson. Do you think he can knock him out, though? I think
Yeah,
that's his path to victory. If he
definitely
is
knock him
going to
out.
win, it's going to be a knockout for Cannonier.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there even just like some big knockdowns end up winning him rounds, even because you know how good Brunson is on the ground. It could end up being, you know, a big knockdown, and then just like the two of them just in a neutral grappling position until the end of the round, and it starts again. You know, next thing you know, Cannonier's 2 rounds up. But yeah, I do think that the KO is probably more likely route to victory for Cannonier.
Although
But
we do know knockdowns can score big. We all saw that
yeah,
that Moreno Figgy fight where the
mm,
knockdown ended up being the pretty decisive factor to give Figgy the nod and the decision.
hmm
Did you agree with that one? Who did you have in that fight? Just curious.
yeah, I had Figgy. I was okay with it, in all honesty.
I
It
think
was
you're the
just a
only
fun
other
fight.
person that had Figgy. I also had Figgy winning that,
Mm.
but I believe we're in the minority there.
Yeah, it's so close though. Yeah, I'm not mad. I wouldn't be mad if Moreno had won. I wouldn't be mad if Figgy had won. At the end of the day, I was just like, well, they both deserve a victory. In my mind, I was like, well, I would give it to Figgy, but it's so close. You know, like I ain't mad either way, and I want to see a fourth one.
Oh, I completely agree, and I think we need to see a fourth one. I think that's even the next fight, which is crazy to have them do it 4 times in a
Mm.
row, but I'm here for it. Uh, in another fight that you brought up that hasn't been announced yet, but we've seen them start to, go at each other on social media, whether it's actually Burns or not, we don't know. But Burns and Khamzat have been going at it on the Twitter. How are you feeling about that beef? Who do you think would win that fight?
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because the thing is with Hamzat Shemaev is he's going up the levels. It's like a video game, isn't it? He's on level 4 or whatever now, and um, Gilbert Burns, it does represent that step up again. He's fought only the best for quite some time now, and whilst he did come up short against Kamaru Usman, who hasn't come up short against Kamaru Usman inside the UFC. Um, yeah, I think I would probably still favour Hamza, to be honest. But great fight, great litmus test. I know it's a hype train, but it's a hype train for a reason, isn't it? Like he's blown everyone out the water, and until someone shows him, shows me something that makes me think, oh, okay, there's a weakness in his game. I'm gonna probably keep supporting him. I know some people have said on the regional scenes or on his amateur days, he has gassed out in the later rounds. So maybe if we do get someone durable enough or defensively sound enough to stay alive for the first 2 rounds or so, maybe that's the route to victory. I don't know. What about you?
I think people have kind of forgotten that Gilbert Burns was a hype train himself before
Mm.
he met Usman in there, and he was pretty much dominating everybody he went up against until he ran into Usman. And I feel like people aren't putting enough respect on his name. I think Gilbert Burns is probably the second best guy in that division on paper right now, if you really look at it.
Get
Uh,
that?
I think he was very deserving of the title shot. I know he came up pretty short when they actually fought, but like you said, everybody's come up short to Usman. I think that is a great test, and I think if Hazmat won that, he would be looking at a title shot. I think that's a
Mm.
perfect little eliminator. I think that's a great fight.
I agree, but also you've got to remember Leon Edwards is always there. I think it seems very likely that he's going to be getting the title shot next. And also, we're on about second best welterweight Gilbert Burns. No chance.
See,
Rocky,
the
Rocky
thing
all the
about
way.
Leon Edwards, though, is that I almost want to relate it to another like sport in a way. It's like strength of schedule. Like, look at the guys
Mm.
he's beaten. It's not quite as impressive as some of the guys, although the streak is incredibly impressive in the amount of fighters. I want to see Leon Edwards really take on one of those top guys, and if he wins that, sign him right up for the title shot. But I think he's one fight away.
His manager, I was listening to an interview with him the other day, said that all things seem poised towards Edwards versus Usman this summer. Um, which I'm here for. To be fair, Edwards has tried to take those fights. It's
No,
not like he's
you're not
been
wrong.
dodging anyone. He's accepted fights against Hamza and Jorge, and they've both pulled out. Well, it was COVID with the Hamza thing, wasn't it, for both guys? But yeah,
I don't exactly think Jorge is a top guy in the division, but
He's a
that's a
name.
different
He's a name.
argument for a different day. But I would like to see Leon fight one more time. I'm also not going to complain if he gets a title shot and sign me up. I'm watching it and I'm excited to watch it.
Mm.
It's not that I don't think he's deserving of it. I just would prefer to see him fight one more time.
Yeah, it's understandable. I think the thing you've got to think of is back when there was first talks of Edwards versus Usman 2. That was back when he was deserving of he worked his way up, and it made sense then. But obviously, the rate this sport evolves and changes, those guys that he was beating back then, they're not in the rankings anymore. You know, Gunnar Nelson, Javier Dos Anjos. Obviously, Nate Diaz is the name, isn't it? But he's never been in the rankings, or not for a long time. So yeah, it's a weird one, but he was deserving, and because of stuff like COVID and whatnot, that's ended up killing his hype somewhat. But the win streak is there, the body of work is there.
The win streak is ridiculous too.
It's insane. Just like Arnold Allen as well. These UK guys are getting the not getting the recognition they deserve.
You think they're out to get him?
They're just not out to give them anything. It's just like, I know it's because they're not maybe like the most electric on the mic, but like Arnold Allen is fucking hilarious. Like, you hear him speaking to like Ariel Hawani or whatever. He is bloody hilarious. He's just not as like, I don't know, maybe he doesn't appeal to the American audience as much. One of the big things about Bisping, why he was so successful, is because he was so outspoken and brash. But there's almost like two sides to a UK athlete. You've got the outspoken Bisping-esque one, or you've got the more, I don't know, reserved Edwards and Arnold Allen.
Well, there was a guy that was in the UK area that, was pretty much gifted a pretty easy path. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy named Conor McGregor.
He's not from the UK. He's outside
Well,
the
I
UK.
said the area.
The general landmass.
He's right next to the UK.
Yeah.
Now
Well, I mean, you say he was gifted, but he also beat a lot of good guys. So
yeah,
at
but
least in featherweight.
well, once he came up against the wrestler, he actually beat him, but they didn't give him a wrestler for a very long time, and I think there was a reason for that.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, he had an easy run, but also like, has his run been any easier than Khamzat Chimaev?
No.
No, exactly. Like, if you get a lot of hype behind your name, you get that free run. It's not just a sport where, it's not like, say, like Premier League football, soccer. You win a match, you get 3 points, and that's how you got the table to go down. In this, it's like Dana's like, yeah, I like you, so I'm going to put you in the rankings. That's
And
it.
there's some showmanship to it, and there's
Yeah.
selling yourself. How well do you market yourself? And we're gonna see that with a UK guy coming up, Paddy Pimblett, market the hell out of himself. I'm sure he's gonna get some opportunities that some other fighters in the UFC that might be just as good as him won't get because they can't sell the way Paddy sells. And that's a skill. That is a skill, and Paddy is very good at it.
That's true. Yeah. He has said, or sort of alluded to, like, potentially following Sean O'Malley's lead, in that, like, for the time being, when he's not getting paid a huge amount of money, he's not going to take the big name fights, because why would he? He wants to be paid a lot to fight the best, which I say is fair enough as well.
Yeah, and that does make sense. And speaking of paying a lot, we've seen the regional scene kind of mix in with the UFC here. Dana White's looking for a fight, was over with the Nelk Boys, and they're offering contracts to fighters. The Nelk Boys have been popping up all over the place. I think it makes sense. I actually like the partnership. I don't think it's just some money grab. I mean, it is to a degree. Don't get me wrong, but it's actually an appropriate one. The Nelk Boys brand kind of does go with the UFC. I see a lot of similar fans. I mean, they started off as a prank channel. That's kind of some guy stuff. It kind of goes in with the combat sports. I don't mind the Nelk Boys being a part of the UFC.
No, I mean, anything that brings exposure to the sport is never going to be a bad thing. It just is a bit weird how much Dana White is just like latched onto them. I'm not going to lie. I thought, like, I'd seen some clips from the Full Send podcast before and never put it together that they were the Nelk Boys. So I only yesterday, when I actually watched the Dana White looking for a fight thing, was it when I actually realized that, yeah, they're one and the same people.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's a good branding, in my opinion. And Dana White wants to feel young again. You know, he's not that old, but adds a younger audience. I mean, MMA is growing. It's stuff like this that you have to do for it to grow. So some
Mm.
people might not like it, and they don't like the selling out, if you want to call it that. But they're growing the sport, and it's eventually going to get these fighters paid more. You can't complain about fighter pay and also complain that the Nelk Boys are around the UFC. You can't do both.
To be rude. Sorry, my dog's just walking in my room. Um, um, what were we saying? Yeah, Nelk Boys.
I was just saying you can't complain about fighter pay and also complain that the Nelk Boys are around the UFC and that you don't like them selling out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not. I mean, how many times have the UFC sold out in the past? I just don't care. Like, let them do what they want. At the end of the day, like, it is a bit cringy and whatever. But then again, like, UFC, MMA, it's such a still a new sport. So if it's gonna bring new eyes and bigger, wider fan bases, then why not?
Exactly. And last weekend, we had Sean Strickland defeating your boy, the UFC fan favorite, Sean Strickland, taking out Hermansson. How did you feel about Sean Strickland jabbing your boy to death?
It broke my heart. It really did. It was so sad to see. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Jack Hermansson. I've interviewed him a few times, and he's just the nicest guy alive.
Kind of like Strickland.
No, like Strickland's weird, isn't he? There is a sort of level of charisma to him that like makes you want to watch his next interview.
Yeah, he's like a charming serial killer.
Yeah, exactly.
He reminds
um,
me kind of like Dexter from Showtime, the serial killer that kills serial killers.
Yeah, that's about right. Um, but yeah, the fight itself was just a shame. Like, I don't know, Jack wasn't able to get the takedowns going, and it was kind of a foregone conclusion that if that was going to be the case, if he couldn't get the takedowns going, then he isn't as good a striker as Strickland. And I was fully aware of that going into the fight. I just presumed he would have better luck with like clinch tie-ups and just, yeah, at least being able to get to the ground once and dealing some damage. But yeah, fair play to Strickland. He may have just chased the paycheck and not gone for anything special, but the jab, what was money, and the takedown defense was quality.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a huge analytics guy by any means,
Mm,
but if you do look at Sean Strickland by the numbers, when his opponents try to take him down, I think there's only been one opponent since he's been in the UFC that has had a better average takedown success rate versus Sean Strickland than their career average. I mean, Sean
really?
Strickland's takedown defense is actually world class.
I think it is. Was it Court McGee that he fought where he went like 0-8 on takedowns or something like that?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, Sean
insane.
Strickland has great takedown defense. It's like he's not this flashy fighter. I saw a joke where someone had like a Sean Strickland video game controller and only had 3 buttons because
Mm,
he doesn't have
yeah,
these bag of tools. He has a couple tools that are really, really crafted well. But
100%. Yeah. It is interesting to like think of how he might fare against Izzy or Whittaker for that case at the top of the heap because yeah, he's got it's like less than the fundamentals even. But yeah, he's very solid and he looks exceptional at middleweight, which seems to be his like perfect weight class. I don't know why he was cutting so much down to welterweight before. I guess maybe it's because he's got like a lack of power. He always talks about that, and maybe he thought that by being the bigger guy in the welterweight division, he might be able to get more knockouts. But he doesn't need it. He can win just by a battle of attrition alone. I don't imagine. I don't know. Do you think if Adesanya wins and if Brunson wins this weekend, could Strickland sneak in there?
I'd like to see it. I think it's a very marketable fight. It makes dollars and cents. Sean Strickland, I mean, people watch to try to see him get knocked out, or they think he's hilarious and they watch for that. But like when Sean Strickland fights, you care. You care one way or the other. You either really want to see him lose or you really want to see him win, which I do think helps him sneak into that conversation if they both are to be successful here. It's all going to depend, though. I mean, now that's a division where it's like stacked up the top, and there's so many different fights you can make, and I probably wouldn't complain about very many of them. The division kind of piled up when Adesanya went up to light heavyweight to try to take on Blachowicz, and now it's kind of like a backlog, and they gotta keep getting these guys going. And Sean Strickland beating Hermansson just makes it even more crowded up there. Where does Sean Strickland go next? I would think the title shot, but you're right. There's kind of a logjam up there.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because there are also a lot of guys that and Whittaker for that matter, have already beaten in that top. You look, it's Vettori, Paulo Costa, Derek Brunson. Those are guys that Adesanya's beaten all of those. I think even Whittaker's beat 2 of them. So maybe it is that they're looking for new blood.
Yeah, and Dana, don't make Sean Strickland fight Vettori. The guy doesn't have that many friends. Don't make him fight one of them. Come on, man.
Well, I mean, he fought Uriah Hall, and they were kind of friends, so maybe do it again.
Why are we doing this to Sean? It's hard enough to make friends with the way he is. Let Sean be. Let Sean be Sean.
It's a shame that they are friends, isn't it? Because imagine how fun that would be if they weren't. They actually hated each other. Like, the bizarre trash talk would just be like Vittorio would get so angry at every little jab from Strickland.
I just love Vittorio because he can get 50-45'd, and then the judges raise the other guy's hand, and he looks like he's shocked and can't believe the decision.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. And the Adesanya fight, it's just
it is a fun time up there, and some of these heavier divisions are coming back. I feel like the lower divisions were keeping us entertained for a while, and finally now we have some exciting heavier fights, some more knockout power in there. I'm pretty pumped for the fights coming up. I mean, this month that's coming up of fights is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Covington versus Masvidal is coming up. I'm excited for that, not because I think it's like gonna be an amazing fight. It's just real beef. It's real
proper beef, yeah. I didn't realize how good friends they were. I'm going back over some of their like old like clips and stuff. Even just like looking at old Colby or Jorge fights, and they're in each other's corners. They're like saying, "This is my best friend. I haven't got any other friends in the world. This is my best friend." I was like, Jesus Christ, what happened? Like, because they really don't seem to like each other at all anymore.
Yeah, now we got Street Judas.
Yeah.
And what does he call him? What does Masvidal call Covington?
I have no idea. Probably a lot of bad things.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to review the tape again. I got to get ready for that fight because that's gonna be exciting. I can't wait for that. Anything else you want to leave for the people before we come back next week? Because we're gonna get this rolling again weekly.
No, that's it from me. Thank you for tuning in if you watch this thing the whole way through. And yeah, it's going to be a weekly thing from now on.
Bang. And we will leave you with this motivational speech from Sean Strickland.
Buddy, weigh-ins are done. I feel good. I just want to give a message to the people who watch UFC, man. You guys are not thanked enough. I contribute nothing to society. The only thing that I'm fucking good at is being violent. I might even not be that good at it. But, I don't build things. I don't work in a hospital. I don't do fucking shit, man. If it wasn't for you guys watching me, like, my life would be meaningless. I'd probably be in prison somewhere cooking meth in a fucking trailer. So, like, I sincerely thank you guys for tuning in, watching me, calling me. You have no idea that you guys have gave me a life. And I thank you. Yeah, anyways, Uriah's the man tomorrow, and I'm going to try to fucking kill him or die on my shield. Let's go.